A federal judge recently ordered the Trump administration to release billions of dollars in foreign aid within less than 2 days after it failed to comply with his court order issued nearly 2 weeks earlier. The lawsuit, filed by nonprofit organizations, challenged the freeze on funding from the U.S. Agency for International Development USAID and the State Department that followed a January 20th executive order by President Donald Trump. The order, which targeted foreign aid programs deemed wasteful and not aligned with the administration's goals, led to a suspension of vital funding. Nonprofits and businesses relying on federal funds argued that the freeze violated federal law and disrupted essential life-saving programs abroad. They further claimed that the administration had not honored its financial obligations, forcing layoffs and pushing some organizations toward financial ruin. Despite Judge Amir H. Ali's February 13th ruling to temporarily restore funding, organizations involved reported that no payments had been made. In a tense exchange during a hearing, Judge Ali asked the government's attorney, Indranil Sir, if he was aware of any funds being released. To which Sir replied, I'm not in a position to answer that. The case was filed by groups such as the AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition and the Global Health Council, which represent organizations receiving U.S. funding for overseas work. These groups sought to have the administration held in contempt of court for not complying with the judge's order. In another political development, Democratic strategist James Carville predicted that the Trump administration would collapse within 30 days, citing a major decline in public opinion. Appearing on the Dan Abrams Show podcast, Carville said, I believe that this administration, in less than 30 days, is in the midst of a massive collapse, particularly a collapse in public opinion. This is the lowest approval, not even close, that any president has ever had at a comparable time. He also linked the public's disillusionment with Trump's numerous executive orders, including stricter immigration policies and his economic focus on tariffs. The article also highlights Elon Musk's frustration with the judicial system after 3 court rulings in quick succession blocked Trump's directives. These included a ruling to unfreeze federal grants and loans, restore foreign aid funding, and pause the refugee admissions program. Musk expressed his anger on social media, posting, The only way to restore rule of the people in America is to impeach judges. No one is above the law, including judges. Musk, apparently drawing on his admiration for El Salvador's authoritarian president Nayib Bukele, added, That is what it took to fix El Salvador. Same applies to America. Bukele, who consolidated power by removing Supreme Court judges, praised Musk's call for eliminating judicial oversight.
U.S. President Donald Trump recently made remarks about Canadian politics, criticizing Chrystia Freeland and stating that conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is not a MAGA guy. As the deadline for potential tariffs on Canada approaches, Trump claimed responsibility for Freeland's resignation as finance minister, alleging that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau removed her after their discussions. Freeland, who played a key role in negotiating the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement, CUSMA, responded by emphasizing her resilience, stating that both Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin opposed her because she doesn't back down. Meanwhile, experts suggest Trump's tariff threats aim to pressure Canada and Mexico ahead of the trade deal's mandatory review. Trump's administration had initially delayed imposing a 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican imports until March 4th, following security measures agreed upon by both countries. However, he recently indicated that he had not seen sufficient progress, suggesting the tariffs would proceed as planned. In a recent interview, Trump commented on the Canadian Conservative Party's dip in the polls, attributing it to Poilievre's stance, stating, he's not a MAGA guy, and expressing disappointment that Poilievre was not supportive of him. Poilievre responded by affirming that he prioritizes Canada first and rejects the idea of Canada becoming the U.S.'s 51st state. As Canadian officials scramble to prevent the tariffs, meetings in Washington continue, with government representatives arguing that Canada has met the necessary border security requirements. However, it remains unclear what specific demands the U.S. administration expects Canada to fulfill. Trump's broader trade policies include upcoming tariffs on steel, aluminum, and potentially other Canadian exports, such as automobiles and forest products. Analysts suggest that unless market reactions force a shift, Canada and the U.S. may have to endure economic strain from these measures.
Ukraine and U.S. finalize minerals deal without security commitments. KYIV, Reuters. Ukraine announced on Wednesday that the United States would support Kyiv's pursuit of security guarantees as part of a finalized minerals agreement, though Washington did not provide any direct security commitments. This deal is central to Ukraine's efforts to secure strong backing from U.S. President Donald Trump, who is focused on quickly ending the war with Russia, something Kyiv's allies worry could come at Ukraine's expense. Trump told reporters on Tuesday that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky planned to visit Washington on Friday to sign what he called a very big deal. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal stated that his government would approve the agreement's wording later on Wednesday, describing it as a preliminary arrangement. Shmyhal explained that after both presidents agreed on security guarantees and their connection to the agreement, a Ukrainian representative would sign the document in their presence. A draft agreement dated February 25th, reviewed by Reuters, was titled, "The Bilateral Agreement Establishing Terms and Conditions for a Reconstruction Investment Fund." According to the document, the government of the United States of America supports Ukraine's efforts to obtain security guarantees needed to establish lasting peace. A Ukrainian official confirmed that this was the version Kyiv expected to approve on Wednesday. During a televised statement, Shmyhal detailed that Ukraine would allocate 50% of the proceeds from future monetization of state-owned natural resources and infrastructure to a jointly controlled fund between the U.S. and Ukraine. Decisions regarding the fund's governance would require Kyiv's approval. He emphasized that existing resource deposits, facilities, licenses, and rents would not be affected by the agreement. Shmyhal assured the public that neither President Zelensky nor the government would approve any deal that undermined Ukraine's sovereignty, saying, "Of course, neither the president nor the government would ever sign or consider a colonial treaty that did not take into account the interests of the state." Georgia Republican with Jesus Guns Babies slogan launches congressional campaign. Savannah, GA. AP. Candace Taylor, a Georgia Republican who ran for governor in 2022 under the slogan, Jesus Guns Babies, announced on Tuesday that she will run for Congress in 2026. Taylor from Baxley made the announcement on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast, saying she intends to seek the GOP nomination for Georgia's 1st congressional district. "I'm ready to go to D.C. and shake things up," Taylor said, adding that both Republicans and Democrats would support her because I represent Jesus.
Trump faces UK backlash over clash with Zelensky. Donald Trump is under fire from British politicians after a heated exchange with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. Prime Minister Keir Starmer reaffirmed the UK's unwavering support for Ukraine, while senior conservative figures, including Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, defended Zelensky after Trump accused Kyiv of gambling with World War III. A spokesperson for Starmer confirmed that he had spoken with both Trump and Zelensky, emphasizing his commitment to securing a lasting peace based on Ukraine's sovereignty and security. The UK is set to host Zelensky in London over the weekend. However, the fallout from the White House confrontation has been intense. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick condemned the incident, saying that Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave. He expressed disgust at what he called a degrading spectacle, praising Ukraine's resilience against Russian aggression. Tory MP and former Foreign Secretary James Cleverly urged the UK to step up support for Ukraine amid concerns that the U.S. is withdrawing its backing. Meanwhile, Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey labeled Trump's actions as thuggery, accusing him of pressuring Zelensky into an agreement that favors Russia. Kemi Badenoch took a more measured stance, stressing that Russian President Vladimir Putin remains the true aggressor. She called for continued international cooperation and emphasized that any peace deal must involve Ukraine directly. With tensions rising, Starmer faces increasing pressure to mediate between the U.S. and Europe on Ukraine. SNP Westminster leader Stephen Flynn even suggested withdrawing Trump's invitation for a state visit. As Zelensky prepares to meet EU leaders in London, the breakdown in U.S.-Ukraine talks has intensified calls for Western nations to step in and provide security guarantees for Kyiv.